On our book slot this morning, on the pages of Little Ngwana Stories, Dr. Lesedi Gaeemelwe weaves a tapestry of African culture, empowerment and literacy as 8 inspiring tales dance across the imagination of young readers. This inclusive collection offers a window into the hearts and minds of a generation, urging them to discover their morals, their boldness and the boundless potential of their dreams. To tell us more, the author joins us now in studio. Dr. Gaeemelwe, a very good morning. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, right. It's a very good conversation we're going to have. And, you know, I've always been quite curious whether whatever it is that we're preaching to our children or imparting on our children, do they really understand it the way that we want them to understand it?
Oh, they do. They'd probably even understand it better than the way we would want them to understand it, because children are real. Children are all about the truth. They learn instinctively. They learn even before you tell them to learn. I'm sure you've been surprised by children watching you and then acting out just the way you behave in front of people. So children will take you just the way you are. But it's very important that as a children's teacher, as a children's mentor, you use the right methods, you use the right teaching aids to make sure that it works well for the child so that they learn better and they're able to use it later on in life.
So what really motivated you to write a book, you know, that addresses every different issue that society faces, but in a child-friendly way?
Well, for me, I think it was just looking at what I missed when I was growing up. Of course, I had a lovely world of literature. I enjoyed, fairy tales like Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast. It was really amazing. Just that most of these stories didn't really speak to my truth. I felt like I celebrated the Western culture more. And so I decided, let me write this fiction, this time around just celebrating fiction around my culture, the African culture, but most importantly, my faith.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a believer of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I decided I'm going to do fiction and do gospel fiction, because the only fiction I ever came across growing up was the parables that were told by Jesus. Any other fiction that I came across was adult fiction. There was no children's fiction concerning my faith.
Okay.
Yes, and so I decided, let me do this, give to the world what I didn't have when I was growing up.
Dr. Gaeemelwe, let me just put myself in a child's mind. So if you write a fictional story and you want to preach a particular message to that child, how does that child interpret that as a message? Will the child see it as a message being preached to him or her, or will he just see it as a fictional story just for entertainment purposes?
It depends. At the moment, the child may find it as entertainment. But, as the child grows up, later on when they're a teenager or later on when they encounter serious challenges of life, it will happen that they'll remember what they were taught when they were younger, returning to the roots, going back to what you were taught when you were younger, and they'll return to the word that they heard. So it's important that you instill these values in children when they are young. They might not realize it now, but later on when they're older, they will return to these good teachings that they got from their elders.
And you can never erase a good teaching from a child's mind, eh?
Absolutely.
Either good or bad.
Absolutely. So it's important.
It is earmarked and, endemic in a child's life forever.
Imprinted forever.
Let's talk about, the importance of learning about talent acquisition and as well as grooming, especially in a child.
It's very important that children also discover when they're early that, their gift can make room for them in king's places, that they should be nurtured as early as possible, that they should desire to find their purpose, and execute their purpose. And a lot of that is usually found in one's talents and one's skills and abilities. It's very important that when a child is still young, they really discover what they want to do with their lives. And one of the stories there covers that whole aspect.
Can you share one specific story from this book that highlights the importance of self-confidence in a child? Because self-confidence needs to be instilled from a very young age, and it builds character moving forward.
One of the stories that are really important there are Andrea. Andrea Says No. This is a gender-based violence story, which helps everybody actually to have that proper and positive self-perception of themselves, so that later on, when they meet people, they should be ready to receive any type of person, deal with bullies, deal with abusers, deal with any person, but in the right way, be assertive. And so Andrea Says No is very good for children's assertiveness.
Wow, I like that. And it makes me wonder, does a child know that gender-based violence has been perpetrated on him. Does the child know if bullying is an issue and it's been perpetrated on him, or they just let it go?
They do.
They do
know, depending on how comfortable they are with expressing it.
Right.
And depending on the type of personality that the child is, they would either maybe suppress it or ignore it. But every child would know if they're experiencing any form of abuse.
And the most important thing is opening the lines of communication with the child so that they are open and more comfortable enough with a parent or an adult to share whatever is bothering them, right?
Absolutely. And even beyond that, the important thing is that the child should know that they should speak out. It's very important that children, as much as they are considered to be knowing less, they need to know that their power is in their innocence. They should know that they are younger, that they are weaker, and then they can use their weakness as the younger person to speak out and to, scream out should they encounter any of that.
And having said that, what role do you think the literary space or literature can play in terms of fostering understanding and pride in one's culture and in one's pride?
Oh, it's a huge, huge role. With literature, it's not just in what we read, it's also in what can come out of it. Songs can come out of books, movies can come out of books, a whole lot can come out of books. And so this can build somebody's self-perception, of course, like where they come from, that culture, that self-identity. Yes. Literature plays a very huge role in that. Looking at just our African culture, there is somewhat very little recorded from our roots as compared to the Western culture. Like I said, I grew up appreciating the Western culture more. So if we write more, if we research more, if we get our elders when they're still alive to say what was happening, to tell us where we come from, then we know where we're going if we know where we're coming from. Absolutely.
And as an author, how do you balance the need to be creative and engaging with your audience or with your readers, with the responsibility of delivering meaningful messages to young writers and readers?
Well, as a children's writer, for me, I hold children's book readings. That's where I get to interact with some of the children that come into contact with my book. Sometimes I reach out to others who might not be able to get the book. Okay. And so I get to fully interact with some of them there. I use all forms of social media. I talk about it a lot, and I just make sure that my work is out there. Yes.
Let's talk about something a little more different here in terms of, grooming a child and in terms of fostering self-identity in a child. Children are often exposed to Western influences, whatever they see on TV or on social media. And I suppose this is where the role of a parent comes into play in terms of fostering what you want the child to grow up knowing themselves as. What's the importance of that? Should we allow our children to be exposed to these Western influences, or should we impart whatever is it that we want to impart in them and not expose them to other external influences?
Well, it's a balance. It's all in balancing it out properly at the end of the day.
Okay.
You are in control of what your child watches, or at least you can try. But sometimes you can't really control what they see. Or because they go to school, you can't be with them all the time.
True.
But play your part. That little time that you have with your child, do instill these values in them. We should let them watch other, what happens in other countries, in the Western cultures. We should let them appreciate that as well, as much as we would like other cultures to appreciate our culture. So let it be in balance, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what's the importance of, having a close relationship with your child to a point where you're becoming friends? Because I've had this conversation with child psychologists saying that it's not actually advisable to be friends with your own child, because there has to be boundaries set. But at the same time, creating a friendship with a child builds a mutual respect, mutual trust, and transparency between both parties.
Absolutely. We're different generations. I'm millennial. Probably my children will be Alpha, Z, whatever. It's important so that we understand that generation and that they understand that we need to understand that generation. We need to have a healthy relationship there where there's mutual respect, of course, and a child should be free to be able to talk to you. But sometimes we need to work on ourselves first so that we can have that healthy relationship with the child. So it's important to have your child be comfortable around you so they can, just say anything so that you can understand them. You can then also, transfer the baton from you to them. They can receive what they need to receive from you, at the right time properly. So I'd encourage that parents be friends with their children. Of course, let it be healthy. There should be boundaries here and there. You can't just
So the key word there is balance, striking a healthy balance.
Absolutely. Balance.
Make them as comfortable as they possibly can, And at the same time, there has to be boundaries.
Absolutely, yes.
So what's your advice in wrapping up this conversation? What's your advice to parents who have who've got children and they want to encourage their children to start reading Afro-inspired stories?
I would just advise parents to let their children choose what they want to read. Let your child have a choice, but at the same time, let your child know what you would prefer. So the child should have a choice. You can just, slightly or just lightly say something and just tell them, I would like you to learn this, but you're free to learn whatever you want to learn. Okay. But most importantly, children will learn by watching you. So just doing the right things, letting your children see what you're doing is the best way of teaching them.
And those ones are good students, eh?
Absolutely.
They easily learn and quickly learn. All right, Dr. Gaeemelwe, great chatting to you, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can you get a copy?
So this book is available. You can go on Google and just type Little Ngwana Stories and all the contacts are there.
Okay.
Yes.
Great stuff. Lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, that was Dr. Lesedi Gaeemelwe talking to us about her book titled Little Ngwana.